Hello everyone, welcome back to the good, the bad, the ugly. So I have been missing for some time, but I'm no longer pregnant, no more belly. I have a lot of videos to update for you guys, but I'm gonna do the most requested one, which is just kind of my labor and delivery story. So some of you may not know, but I did have a successful VBAC. Woo, 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 woo. And for those of you that do not know what the VBAC is, it's just a vaginal birth after a cesarean section, so a C-section. And just to give you some background, I think it's important to kind of let you know why I had the C-section in the first place, and then what kind of made me want to attempt a VBAC, because they're very risky. So when I was pregnant with my son, I was a teen mom, as many of you know. If you have not had a chance to watch my teen pregnancy video, I'll link it down below so that you can check that out as well. But I just really did not have a voice for myself during that time, and I wasn't able to really be firm about what I wanted and what I didn't. Now, I knew I did not want a C-section going into it. That was one thing that I did not want. And I just had so much swelling and everything down below that when my doctor came in after pushing forever, he just pretty much said we have to do an emergency C-section. Now at this point, I was pushing for so long. We had already started to see his head, so we saw his hair and stuff. And they just thought it would be more risky for him to continue to come out instead of doing a C-section. But I hadn't done any research prior to going in. I just kind of listened to what the doctor says, because obviously we think that they know best when they're people just like us, so they don't always know. However, it was a horrible experience. I hated my C-section experience. They gave me a lot of drugs, which that's what I wanted. But when they like transferred me from the table that they took me into the operating room in to the other table, I like almost fell off the bed. I didn't really have any control over my body. But I think they like underestimated how light I was, and when they transferred me, they like did it too hard or too fast, and I like pretty much almost fell off. So that was one thing. I started feeling them cutting me. Like I actually felt them creating my incision, and I was telling them, hey, I feel it, and they were saying, oh no, it's just pressure, you don't feel it, it's just pressure. And I'm like, no, I feel it, like give me some more medicine because I'm feeling it. So they ended up giving me more medicine to kind of, I wasn't like completely knocked out, but I was like very in and out. I didn't really remember much of it. And then everything just hurt afterwards. Like I couldn't walk, I couldn't laugh, I couldn't cough, I couldn't eat for days. They had me on a liquid diet. Even when they gave me food, I still couldn't eat. I couldn't poop forever. Obviously, it's a major surgery, so a lot of that stuff is to be expected. However, I just like did not expect the recovery to be as bad as what it was. Now, one thing, my doctor did give me a really good incision. It's not very large. It healed pretty well. I didn't have any infections or anything like that, so that was pretty good. But anyway, so coming back to this current pregnancy, or the most recent one rather, I found a doctor who's very VBAC friendly. I did end up switching doctors because the first doctor I had was a male, and he was just very rude. Anyway, that's another story. So I found a black female doctor that I felt like would advocate for me if something were to go wrong, and she was awesome. I loved her, and she was so like encouraging and confident that I could get the VBAC done. It had been 10 years. She thought I was the perfect candidate for it. I didn't have any issues throughout my first pregnancy or my second pregnancy. No blood pressure, anything like that. So, I mean, it was perfect. I was so scared. I had so much anxiety around attempting a VBAC simply because experiences that I had with my mom and her attempting her VBAC, and it was not successful. And I'm not going to go into a lot of details, but it just gave me so much anxiety. Like, I was scared of dying while giving childbirth. So I contemplated a lot. I went back and forth on what I should do, what I shouldn't do. I always have anxiety, but that was probably the worst anxiety I've ever had. And it was hard up until the point that I came home, I think, is when my anxiety started to kind of go away. So anyway, my story, I was 38 weeks and 6 days, so pretty much 39 weeks pregnant. And I had been walking, trying to get this girl out of me because I was so miserable. It's June, it's hot, and I'm just over being pregnant. I had went to the hospital the day prior because I had some vaginal bleeding, and there really shouldn't have been any reason for bleeding because I hadn't done anything. So I went, and she said that I was having contractions. Now, I didn't feel these contractions at all, but she said that I was having them, but I was still only like a centimeter dilated and about 50% effaced. And she just pretty much told me, like, don't come back unless your contractions are 5 minutes apart or your water has broken. So I was like, okay, cool. So I left the hospital that day, and my husband and I went walking at the park. And this was probably about 9 o'clock at night. We went walking until about 10. We came home, ate dinner, and at 12 o'clock, my contractions were like hardcore. Like, they were coming back to back to back. But they weren't quite 5 minutes apart, so I was just sticking it out. This is midnight. And they hurt, but I couldn't really remember if they hurt as bad as like what they usually do, I guess. I don't know. So from 12 o'clock midnight to 4:30 a.m., I had contractions the whole time. They were like 5 minutes apart, and then it'll be 10 minutes apart. So because it wasn't consistent, I just tried to get rest. I just couldn't do anything. I just laid there and tried to just kind of tough it out, stick through it. So at 4:30, I woke my husband up, and I was like, these contractions have not stopped. Like, I don't know. So he's like, do you think we should go to the hospital? I said, I don't know. I don't think they're hard enough, and they still aren't very close. So I said, well, let me go pee, and let's see what happens. So I woke up to, I got up to go to the bathroom, and I felt a little trickle, and I didn't have any like incontinence or anything throughout my pregnancy. So I was like, oh, I don't know. But I went to the bathroom, and I kind of felt some like fluid coming out, but I was still peeing at the same time. So I wasn't sure if it was just pee or what. But when I looked in the toilet, I saw some like brownish stuff. So I was like, okay, well, that's my mucus plug coming out. But I wasn't sure. So I said, baby, I think we should go to the hospital. So we get in the car. It's 4:30 a.m. and my contractions start. They stop as soon as we like get 5 to 10 minutes down the road. I said, maybe we should turn around. And he's like, no, we are on the way now. If they send us back home, then that's just what we're gonna do. So the hospital is about 30 minutes away from the house, and my contractions start back like 5 minutes from the hospital. So I'm like, oh, we gotta go. I'm telling him, like, run the red light. So we get to the hospital, and he's like, do you need a wheelchair? I'm like, no, I'm just gonna walk in. Let's go, because my contractions started back. As soon as I step foot in the hospital lobby, I sit in the wheelchair, and my water breaks everywhere, like everywhere. And I think the registration lady was new. I feel like she was new, because when my water broke, she kind of freaked out a little bit, and she was like, I need a nurse. So I look up, and there's like 15 different nurses running towards me, and I'm like, oh God, it's like a movie. So they take me in, and like I start taking my clothes off, and they start prepping everything, hooking me up to the monitors. We think we about to have this baby in like any minute now. So I get hooked up to everything, and my contractions just stop getting, like, they aren't as hard as what they were. So I'm just laying there, just kind of going through them as they come. And then things just start to slow down a lot. So I'm like, okay, what's going on? So we're just chilling. Like, at this point, it's 5 o'clock in the morning. I hadn't really had any sleep all night, so I'm just like exhausted, but I still can't sleep because I'm in pain. Avery he's like freaking out, like, oh, we're about to have a baby, but he's still excited at the same time. And I mean, I'm just doing nothing at this point. Like, I'm not progressing. They come in, they check me, and they say, oh, she's like 3 centimeters, I think is what they said. 3 centimeters and still about 50% of face. So that's when I first got there. They checked me. A couple hours later, when they switch shifts, so it's like 7 o'clock when they switch shifts, another nurse comes in. She checks me again. This is the same nurse from the night before. And she's like, oh, she's about 1.5 centimeters. So me and Avery look at each other like, what? The last lady just said I was 3 centimeters. You can go backwards. So at this point, I'm kind of getting a little worried. I'm like, oh, that's weird. And she also said, oh, and her head is really high. And I can't really feel anything. But the day before, she said that her head was low in my pelvis and she could feel it. So I wasn't really sure what was going on. I was kind of getting concerned, but not trying to freak out. So another couple hours go past, and the doctor comes in, and they tell me who it is, and I'm like, I mean, I knew my doctor wasn't on call because she told me she wasn't going to be on call until the 11th, but I thought it was going to be another lady that I had been seeing at the doctor's office. It's a completely different lady, never heard her name, never seen her face, and I'm starting to freak out because I'm like, I don't know her, she doesn't know me, like, she don't know my story, none of that. So she comes in and she's like, okay, so you aren't progressing. We like can start you on Pitocin, but we might have to do a C-section if you don't start progressing because your water is already broken, so it risks infection for you and the baby. So of course she says C-section, and I lose it. I'm like, I'm trying to hold it together, but I know I don't want a C-section. Like, I came this far. I told myself to listen to my body, and I don't want a C-section. Like, I just didn't want to go through it again. So I'm trying to wait for everybody to leave, like the nurse to leave, but she wouldn't. So I just start crying, and I call my mom because I'm just so frustrated. And I'm like, I don't want a C-section, but I'm not making any progress. And for those of you who don't know, like, for VBACs, they try to be like no interventions because it just risks the risk of uterine rupture. So when they give you things to induce your labor, like Pitocin, it makes your contractions like come hard, intense, and it sometimes can be so much pressure on the uterus that it'll rupture, and that can be fatal for both mom and baby. So I had a lot of risks to consider when making this decision, and I knew of the risk before, but I also knew of the risk of a C-section. So yeah, she starts the Pitocin, and I'm like, okay, I'm ready to get my epidural because I know that the contractions are going to come strong and hard. So prior to giving me the epidural, they give me a uterine catheter, and that just pretty much measures the intensity and the frequency of the contractions from the inside, which, like, I'm feeling pretty confident about that because I'm like, okay, cool, I've never had that before. And then they gave me the urinary catheter right after they did my epidural. So what happened? So the man came in, he gave me my epidural. It was in a completely different spot than when I had it the first time. So that was kind of weird to me. It was like in the middle of my back instead of like you know, where you get tramp stamps at pretty much. Anyway, that medicine kick in and they give me a peanut ball as well. Now that helped a lot, the peanut ball. So I'm starting to make some progress now. They come in a few hours later and they're like, okay, you know, we're at 3. We keep going, we're at 7. I'm like, oh, bet, like we're getting somewhere. So the whole time I tell myself, Kishara, listen to your body. Don't be stubborn. If something is not right, you need to speak up. So I just keep telling myself that. Now, I told my doctor that my last pregnancy, when they gave me my epidural, I went from 5 to 10 centimeters in like 60 seconds. Like it just kind of happened. So I told her don't go far, but she's like, oh, well, I'm gonna go do a surgery really quickly and come back and hopefully you're, you know, ready to give birth. So I'm telling her, all right, lady, don't go far. Anyway, she leaves and I'm feeling my contractions. Like, this is weird because the last time I couldn't even feel my contractions at all. Like, they had to tell me when to push and everything. But I start feeling them and I'm like, oh, I got like, I'm thinking I'm gonna poop and everything. So they checked me when I was at 7 centimeters. And like 30 minutes later, I asked the nurse, I said, can you check me again? Like, I'm just feeling a lot of pressure. And she's like, no, we just checked you 30 minutes ago. You likely haven't, you know, progressed anymore. I'm telling her, lady, if you do not check me, I'm going to pull this baby out myself. Like, I'm feeling so much pressure. So she's like, okay. She checks me and she's like, oh, she's complete. So Avery looks up at her like, complete? She's like, yeah, she's ready to have the baby. She calls the doctor and she's like, oh, you know, she's complete. And they just didn't expect it to happen that fast. So the doctor like comes running back over. At this point, I'm full out, like ready to push, ready to have this baby. And the doctor comes, she's like getting dressed, putting all her stuff on. And she's like, don't push, don't push. And I'm telling her, I gotta push. Like, I can't wait anymore. I told you not to go. It's time. So she gets there just in time when it's time for me to push. And at this point, I feel my contractions, so I know when it's time. Anyway, 15 minutes from the time I started pushing to the end, and we have the little girl, Amora. So now I did have like a 1st degree, kind of a 2nd degree tear, only because she had to do some additional work from what my last doctor messed up. He did a horrible job doing whatever he did down there. But she was really good. Like, overall, the doctor, I was so satisfied with her. She was very encouraging. She told me I could do it. Just pushing. Now, I don't know how people push for more than like 30 minutes because 15 minutes literally felt like 3 hours. I know people push for longer than that, but I don't see how because I just couldn't breathe. Like, I couldn't do anything. So she did a lot of massaging. She did, what did she do? I don't remember. She did a lot of stuff. So I start bleeding after I have her, and they give me a shot because they thought I was about to hemorrhage. And that was scary, of course. So my doctor's doing a lot of pulling and tugging and all types of stuff. They give me a shot in my thigh at the same time. So, like, I'm trying to be in the moment with my daughter, but at the same time, like, I'm not really sure what's going on. I know they thought I was going to hemorrhage, so I was kind of scared about that. And after they gave me a shot, I was fine. But my blood pressure spiked up really, really high after they gave me the shot. So they were kind of concerned about that, but they were able to get the bleeding to stop. And I knew it was a lot because I saw it like on her glasses and stuff. It was weird. But I'm able to do my skin to skin and do my breastfeeding immediately, so that was good. And they transfer us back. They transfer us to the recovery area upstairs, and like, my blood pressure is still not going down. So my blood pressure is still really high. They had to give me a lot of medicine to try to get it back down, and it just wouldn't go down. So they said that if my blood pressure didn't go down the next time they checked me, then they were going to have to admit me to a different unit, because like I had never had any blood pressure issues, so they were really worried about it. Well, anyway, they checked me the next time and my blood pressure did go down. Not back to normal, but it was to a range where they weren't really concerned about it. Anyway, my doctor came in. She put me on blood pressure medicine up until my 6 weeks checkup. So I was a little scared about that, just not really knowing kind of what was going on. But overall, it was a really good experience. I'm so happy I stuck with doing my VBAC. And to anybody who is considering a VBAC, I just say really like listen to your body. Nobody knows your body, even your doctor. Your doctor can't really tell you unless they're like down there and they see that something is wrong. Listen to your body. If it feels wrong, don't go forward with it. But just believe in yourself. Like, you can do it. This is what our bodies are made for. And if you don't succeed, it's okay. I mean, you could try again. People have VBACs after 2 cesarean sections. It's just important for you to really listen to like everything that you're kind of experiencing within, and just really stay prayed up. Like, we prayed so much when we were in the hospital. Like, God, just please keep us, like watch over us as we kind of go through this experience. And I think it all paid off. I had a great team of nurses, doctors. Like, I was just so satisfied. It was a wonderful experience compared to my last one. And I don't necessarily want more kids anytime soon, at least. But I definitely will be trying for another VBAC if I decide to have any more children. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. I have way more videos to come now that I'm not pregnant, so I have a lot more energy now. Just stay tuned, and I'll see you guys next time.